Welcome to the September 26th HealthTech Dose. You know, if you're a leader in pharma R&D, you've definitely been in that meeting. The one where you're asked to justify the massive investment in AI to the board. It's a tough question, right? Because it's not about the flashy tech, it's about tangible returns. So in this explainer, we're going to break down the hard data-driven case for AI and show you exactly how to talk about it as a strategic necessity, not just another cost center.
So to really get why AI is such a huge opportunity, you first have to understand the scale of the problem we're all facing. A really important study from the Tufts Center for the Study of Drug Development found that the average Phase 3 clinical trial now collects, get this, 5.9 million data points. And that number is growing by over 10% every single year. Our current systems, well, they're just buckling under the weight. But the real question is, what's actually hiding inside that mountain of data?
And when you dig in, you find something pretty startling. That same Tufts study discovered that almost a third of all the data we collect is either non-core, for exploratory endpoints, or it's just plain non-essential. It's stuff we're gathering way more often than we need to. Now, this isn't just inefficient. It's a huge drain on resources and a real burden on our patients and clinical sites. And that right there sets up the conversation about AI perfectly. It's not about adding more complexity. It's about making sense of what we already have. Okay, so let's shift gears from the problem to the solution. Specifically, the proven financial returns. And I want to be clear, this is not theoretical. Industry leaders are already showing how smart, targeted AI implementation can turn this data problem into a serious profit driver. We're talking about real, hard numbers that go straight to the bottom line.
Let's start with manufacturing and quality assurance. AI-powered visual inspection systems, well, they've been shown to cut the time it takes to detect defects by a whopping 60%. That's a direct blow to operational inefficiency. You're speeding up your processes, and at the same time, you're boosting accuracy by 25% compared to the old manual methods.
And the power of predictive analytics? It's just as impressive. Take GlaxoSmithKline. They brought in AI-driven predictive maintenance for their equipment. The result? A 65% drop in unplanned downtime. You can just imagine what that means. More consistent production, way fewer costly interruptions, and a 30% cut in maintenance costs. It just works.
The impact goes all the way to risk management too. Johnson & Johnson rolled out an AI system that analyzes historical data to spot these subtle patterns of process drift before they become a full-blown crisis. Being that proactive led to a 40% reduction in batch rejections. That's how you ensure consistent quality and avoid really significant financial losses.
So, here's how all these examples come together to build a really powerful story for your leadership team. You've got GSK, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer. These aren't some small startups just experimenting. These are industry giants, and they're seeing double-digit improvements in their most critical operational metrics. Whether it's Pfizer cutting batch failures by 28% or GSK slashing that downtime, these are the concrete, defensible ROI figures that get investments approved.
But look, operational efficiency, that's really only half the story, isn't it? The ultimate goal for all of us is improving patient outcomes. The most powerful case for AI goes way beyond just cost savings and speaks directly to clinical efficacy. And a recent study in eye disease gives us a really stunning example of this.
So this study focused on something called neovascular age-related macular degeneration, or NAMD. It's a leading cause of vision loss. And what they did was compare the current standard of care, which is a clinician looking at retinal scans, to an AI-assisted approach, where an algorithm analyzed those same scans for signs of disease activity. The question was pretty simple. Could the AI help make better, safer decisions for patients?
The results were, well, they were just completely unequivocal. What you're seeing here is a measure of how well each method correctly identified stable disease and, crucially, avoided sight-threatening undertreatment. The real-world care from clinicians alone was right about 82% of the time. The AI-assisted assessment, over 95%. I mean, that is a clinically massive improvement in patient safety.
And the study's authors, they didn't pull any punches. This quote confirms it right here. The AI's performance wasn't just some statistical fluke. It represented a clinically significant improvement. It's proof that AI can augment our experts to deliver a much higher standard of care. This is exactly the kind of evidence that aligns financial investment with our core mission of improving human health.
But, and this is important, no technology is a silver bullet. That same NAMD study pointed out that the AI model, even though it was superior overall, could still make mistakes. It sometimes got confused by certain abnormalities in the scans. Now, this isn't a failure of the technology. It's a critical reality check, and it leads us directly to the next crucial part of this whole conversation, managing risk.
To have a credible conversation with any executive team, you have to talk about the risks head-on. Not every AI project is a home run, and understanding why they sometimes fail is the absolute first step to making sure yours doesn't. This is all about being realistic, not just blindly optimistic.
One of the absolute biggest traps is something called a high risk of bias. It's the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. If the data you're using to train an AI model is flawed or inconsistent or just poorly defined to begin with, the model's predictions are going to be unreliable. It doesn't matter how sophisticated the algorithm is.
A recent systematic review of AI models for diabetic foot ulcers just makes this concept painfully clear. The review found that most of the studies were just riddled with these methodological flaws. Things like inconsistent definitions for variables and outcomes, different follow-up times, and sample sizes that were just too small. All these issues make it frankly impossible to trust the models or even think about using them in a real clinical setting.
Now let's look at a different kind of risk, one that exists even when you have high-quality data. A 2025 study looked at a state-of-the-art medical large language model, an LLM in a radiation oncology setting. And the finding was pretty amazing. The LLM could answer complex clinical questions at a level that was comparable to human experts. On the surface, that sounds like a massive breakthrough, right?
But here is the critical catch. The very same clinicians who said the LLM's answers were high quality also flagged 16% of its responses as potentially harmful if they were actually used to make a clinical decision. This shows a really vital distinction we have to make. Human-level performance is not the same thing as clinical-grade readiness. And that gap, it represents a huge patient safety risk that has to be managed.
So, knowing the incredible potential but also being very aware of the pitfalls, how do we move forward? Well, it requires a strategic playbook, a clear, actionable framework for leadership that can guide a successful implementation and make sure that every single dollar invested in AI delivers real, demonstrable value.
And that playbook really boils down to 3 core principles. First, validate everything rigorously. Don't just take a vendor's word for it. You have to test any model on your own real-world data before you even think about deploying it. Second, focus on decision support. Use AI to augment your experts, not replace them. That keeps a human in the loop to catch those inevitable errors. And third, target high-burden processes. Go for the low-hanging fruit first. Focus on specific workflows like quality control or data cleanup, where the ROI is crystal clear and unambiguous.
And this really brings us to the single most important strategic takeaway of all. Successful AI implementation isn't a procurement issue. It is not about buying a new tool off the shelf. It is fundamentally about building a strategic, internal capability, a whole new way of operating that weaves together data, technology, and expertise to drive better, faster decisions across the entire R&D lifecycle. So, I'll leave you with this one question to take back to your teams. We started this whole conversation by pointing out that nearly a third of your clinical trial data is essentially non-essential waste. Now that you know about the proven ROI and the clear playbook for implementation, what is your strategy to turn that enormous cost into your next great competitive opportunity?